Good evening. Good evening. This is Shahida Hill, getting you over the hill to home ownership and helping you confidently buy your first home. I'm doing a special live tonight because last week, at the end of last week, the National Association of Realtors announced a settlement in which some things are going to change regarding buyer agency. And a big part of this channel is based on first-time home buyers and helping them as a buyer's agent myself, for the most part, helping them find their first home, you know, helping you, working with your agent, that sort of thing. And this change will impact you. And I want you guys to be prepared about what's to come. So I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to answer any of your questions about it after that. So I'm going to get right into it. Hey, Sir Ashley. And Sir Ashley called. Sir Ashley, I'm putting him up here. Sir Ashley did text me the other day, and he was like, "Are you going to go live? You want to go live about this?" And I was like, "Well, I have softball practice with my daughter. I can't do it." And then I just keep on getting messages about it. So I decided to go live today instead of Thursday. So thank you, Sir Ashley. If you're not familiar with Sir Ashley, he's does the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, has a really good channel. Thank you, Sir Ashley, for joining me. All right, so I want to go over a couple of things. And hi to everybody else that's joining me as well. All right, so buyer agency. It became popular in the 90s. So prior to the 90s, someone would list their house with a real estate agent, and the buyer would just go straight to the listing agent. They typically did not have their own agent. It wasn't a buyer's agent and a listing agent. It was just a listing agent, and then that listing agent would negotiate for the seller. So nobody really was representing the buyer. And there were a lot of problems that happened because of that. Because when that person is not your client, there are certain obligations that you don't have to them. So as a listing agent, if I list a house, my obligation is to the seller. My obligation is not to the buyer. Even though I wouldn't do anything illegal, there might be things that I have to disclose about the house just legally, but I don't have to advise you to get a home inspection. I don't have to advise you to make sure you have an appraisal contingency in your contract. You are not my client. So when you only have one side, that agent is working for the seller, not working for you, right? So there were a lot of problems with that. So then buyer's agency became a thing, okay? So what typically happens prior to this new change, when a seller wants to sell their house, they hire a real estate agent. That real estate agent is kind of negotiating not only their commission sometimes, or at least this is the way it used to be. They're kind of negotiating the buyer's agent commission as well. So say they said, I will list your house for 5%. So if they say they would agree to list their house for 5%, sometimes in that same conversation, they would say, but if a buyer comes and they have their own agent, then I will split that commission with them. It doesn't have to be split equally. They can offer them 2%. They could keep 3%, but that 5%, if the buyer came with their own agent, they would generally share that commission with your agent if you're the buyer, right? So then there was typically no cost out of your pocket in order to have representation, okay? And that's big because especially as first-time home buyers, a lot of my first-time home buyers, they're struggling to get the down payment together, getting the closing costs. And so to pay me out of their pocket would be even more expense and take them even longer to purchase something. So the ability for us to know, oh, that this home is offering me a commission and I don't have to charge my buyer client, then that was something that we didn't really have to worry that much about. I'm going to give you an example. I just copied and pasted this from my MLS. So this person is listing a home. I just copied the bottom. It says buyer agency compensation 3%. So they're saying if I bring them a buyer to this home and the transaction closes, they will pay me 3%. So it's almost like a guarantee of income for me. So I'm taking this client, as long as I can find them a buyer, they're going to pay me 3%. It's not always going to be 3%. Sometimes it's 2.5, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 1. But there's some kind of guarantee of compensation for me as a buyer's agent. So I'm not stressed to stress my client, the buyer, to pay me directly. And that might be changing. Now, the reason why this is all coming about, because the National Association of Realtors, and I'm a realtor, they got sued because it seemed as if, I guess, 6% became very common. So they were alleged to be price fixing, where, people would list their home for 6%, the listing agent would get 3% sometimes, and the buyer's agent would get 3%. That became very common. And that's fair practices violation as far as trade, that's that sort of thing. You can't price fix things. So they sued them, and the first lawsuit, the people that were suing them won. They sued a lot of the brokerages for price fixing their commissions. They won their first lawsuit, and then it became like class actions in different states. So now the National Association of Realtors said, hey, basically, before we get bankrupt with all these lawsuits, let's settle. And as part of that settlement, there are two main things that are going to be changing. Two things. Commissions will not be advertised. So in that sample that I showed you just a minute ago, where it says buyer's agent compensation 3%, they're no longer going to advertise that to the public, to agents, to anyone. You are not supposed to advertise what the commission is going to be, because sometimes what would happen is that a seller would list their house and then they would offer 1% commission. And a lot of agents would steer their clients away from that house because they knew they couldn't make as much money from that property as they could from another property offering 3%. Okay. So, and that's something that should not have been happening, but it was, in some cases happening. All right. And then your buyer agent will likely now make you sign a contract. There's always been a buyer agency agreement, and I have my clients sign them. Sometimes I don't have them sign it up front, maybe sign them, during the transaction. But this contract, the reason why some people didn't make people sign them was because once you're under contract on a property, then as an agent, your name is on that contract. So that's how you're guaranteed kind of to get paid, at least, because your name is on that contract. But now you have to be, if you are going to be represented by a buyer's agent, you have to be under contract with that agent, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Because, and I'll go to my next, set of talking points. There may be a time in which that buyer's agent has to ask that seller for compensation, right? Are you willing to pay the buyer's agent? Are you willing to pay me? And in order for them to do that, they're going to have it in writing that they represent you. So it's going to be, more mandatory that you're going to see buyer agents ask up front. Number one, they're going to talk about how they're getting paid a lot more, because there's uncertainty. Before, there wasn't any uncertainty. It was advertised. I knew if I showed you this house, this is how much I was going to get paid, right? So we're not working for free as buyer agents. So, but this is new to us as well. So we have to navigate how we're going to go about making money. Are we going to all go to listings and we just focus on listings altogether? Or are we going to try to figure out how we can make this work for buyers? And I particularly work with a lot of first-time home buyers. And so I have to strategize how I can make this, work for my first-time home buyers, particularly. So we'll talk about that. If you're just joining me, we're talking about buyer agency and how that may change in the next couple of months. Officially, they're not going to advertise commissions officially July 1st. So we have now March, April, May, June, and then buyer agency compensation advertised is going to go away. So that certainty of what we could earn on a particular property is going away. Okay, I will take your questions in a second. Okay, but put them in the chat. I'm going to go back up. My moderator's in the chat. All right, so this is what I want to say to first-time home buyers. This will impact you the most if you're a first-time home buyer. This is the reason. You don't have as much money as somebody who sold a house and is buying another house. If somebody has sold their house and is buying another house, they typically have made money on that house. And so they have a little more leeway, a little more flexibility as far as paying commissions out of their own pockets. In my experience, for the most part, even people that are, middle class, first time home buyers, they don't have all the down payment. Sometimes they don't have all of their closing costs. They need some of that money. So to say, 3% became very popular, even though commissions were always negotiable. A lot of buyers agents have it in their mind, I only work for 3%. I work for 3%. But I think there's going to be a lot more flexibility with that, because you have to sit down and say, okay, what am I really worth? And how much should I charge? Because you work, and it's not just sometimes commission based, because I work harder on lower price properties, to be honest with you, because they're harder to find, they take longer, there's more negotiation that needs to take place, but I would make less on that property. So that's something that buyer's agents are going. Again, this is very new, so everybody's kind of wrapping their heads around their strategy going forward. But this will impact you more because you typically, as first-time home buyers, you have less money to work with. Number two, the seller can still pay your agent, but it won't be advertised. It won't be, again, where they'll say, I'll pay 3%, I'll pay 2%. You won't know at all until your agent calls, or if they're advertising some other way, right? Maybe a flyer or something like that. You can't advertise on the MLS what you're offering. So a lot of agents are saying they're going to have to call the listing agent. Is your seller offering any commission to the buyer's agent? But that kind of leaves buyer's agents in limbo, because if we don't charge you a certain amount in the contract, right, and then we find a house that's not offering anything, then we've worked for nothing. So there has to be some kind of compensation that's agreed upon up front. And that I don't like uncertainty at all. I don't like uncertainty on my side, and I don't like uncertainty on the buyer side, because how can you budget for something that you're not sure if you have to pay or not? So that's something that's going to have to be worked out. Your buyer agent will likely begin to charge a retainer fee. So some agents already charge this. So when they initially start working with you, they may charge you $350, $500, $1,000 just to begin working with you, because they're not, again, sure of compensation at the end. If you don't find a house, they're not getting paid. If that seller is not offering anything, they're not getting paid, or they're going to have to get paid from you, which they can't typically take that up front from you. Depending on how that works, you're not going to be like, oh, I'll give you 3% up front, right? If you haven't found a house yet, or a 2%, or whatever it is. I think there'll be more flat fees, where they say, hey, I'll find you a house and this is my flat rate. I'll show you, as part of this agreement, I'll show you 15 homes. There's going to be things like that, because it can't be a lot of times open-ended. Like, I'll show you 100 houses and I know I'm only going to get this flat amount. So you may see things like that as well. More buyers may go directly to the listing agent. So a listing agent, again, you can go right to the listing agent and say, you see them on Zillow, or you see the house, you see the sign up, hey, I want to buy this house. Can you help me make the contract, make the offer? Because as a buyer, you don't even have access to contracts for the most part, unless you hire a lawyer. And so lawyers may start to get involved, and don't think lawyers are less expensive than real estate agents. They may be just as expensive or more, that they have to draft your contract or submit your contract for you. I haven't heard too many lawyers saying they wanted to get involved with that. But imagine, for every offer that you have to submit, that you have to get an attorney to make that offer for you. Or for every house that you're interested in, you have to reach out to that individual listing agent for each of those properties to see it, that sort of thing. Because I've had a client that was buying in Georgia recently. We saw 35 homes before they made a decision on one house. So if you don't have a buyer's agent, you may have to contact each house that you're interested in. It just becomes very cumbersome process. All right. I said that. It depends on what kind of market we're in. And I want you guys to pay close attention to this. And if you're just joining me, we're talking about buyer's agent. Put your questions in the comments. The moderator is going to be pulling up the questions. It depends on what kind of market we're in. If we're in a seller's market, I see less sellers offering buyer agent commission, because if they have a lot of people that want to buy their property, why, they'll have some of them that they don't have to pay an agent, right? There'll be some in that field, right? Or in that pool of buyers that don't need them to pay their agent anything. It's the same way when, they weren't offering closing costs, or that, they were offering, you were paying above appraised value. Things like that were happening. So I don't think, if we're in a strong seller's market, low inventory, with a lot of competition, that a lot of sellers will not have to strategically offer the buyer's agent anything. They'll find somebody in that pool that's willing to buy their house without paying their agent, if they even have an agent. And then if it's a buyer's market, it's probably going to be much different. If there are more homes than buyers to buy them, then you're going to have a lot of buyers that are willing to pay an agent commission. And the same way, if the house has been on the market for a long time, guess what? It's part of their marketing to say, we'll pay your agent. We'll pay your agent because we're trying to sell this house and we don't want to make it more expensive for you to purchase it, right? And you cannot finance this. So you can't, FHA is not going to finance our commissions, buyer's agent commissions. You can't finance commissions the same way you can't finance for the most part your closing costs, your down payment, right? So you cannot finance this. This has to be paid. It was easiest paid, from the seller or the seller's proceeds, right? But you can't finance this. I just want to put that out there. So it's very important, depending on what you're doing. It's projected, a lot of agents that specifically focus on buyers are going to leave the market, because again, there's the guarantee of a certain amount of income per house that they sell is going away. So and there's going to be maybe not as many people that can afford or that want to pay them directly. So there'll probably be less buyer's agents overall. So you have to get educated, especially if you are planning on going directly to the seller or directly to the listing agent. You have to know yourself. Finance contingency, what's a good time for that? You have to know appraisal contingency, what's a good time for that? You're going to have to know all of those things. You're going to have to know about, making an amendment to your offer. All of the things that a buyer's agent would do for you, you have to have a base level of understanding of this. Now, I'm going to go, before I take your questions, I'm going to say what I've been thinking about. I haven't made any firm decisions on how I'm going to do my business as a buyer's agent, or primarily I do take listings, but primarily the listings that I do take are in my local city. Now that I have, my YouTube business, they're in my local city. I don't go more than 10 or 15 miles from my home. I take listings, I take buyers. I've never, just in all transparency, I've never had to charge one of my clients directly anything ever. I've always, and sometimes it wasn't always 3%. Sometimes I got 1%. Sometimes I got 2%. Sometimes I got 4% if there was a bonus, but it kind of always, worked out, whether it was more referrals, more things. I never had to say, well, I need to get paid this, right? So I've never had to do that necessarily, but I do have to change the model in which I work. I've been thinking about a flat fee model for certain instances. I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about, I was thinking about something else. I can't even think about it now, but I've been thinking about changing the way in which I work, just to make it more clear of how people are going to compensate me directly. But all right, so let's, and I have a good pool of Atlanta first-time home buyers, and I have a good pool of buyers that are in my city. So I may be able to work with some of my listings and say, well, I already have some buyers, and are you willing to, because what I don't like to do is I don't like to represent both sides, because I'm so such a first-time home buyer or a buyer's advocate. I know that you need your own representation. And I know if I'm hired by the seller that I can't do certain things to jeopardize their position. So even if I knew the buyer that was buying this house, and I've done this a couple of times, I usually find an agent, either in my brokerage or outside of my brokerage, and I paid them like 1% to go ahead and represent that person. So then there's no question. I wasn't, steering anybody in the wrong direction. They had representation and I was representing the seller. So I have done that in the past. So it's something I probably will still do, just so if I do know the buyer, even though I'm on the listing side, I know that they have their own representation, somebody that can guide them through the process. All right. So let me start taking your questions. I'm going to let the moderator, I'm going to give her a second to look through to see which question people should ask first. I also want you guys to get my masterclass. If there's no other better time to get my masterclass, is now, because you have to know, because like I said, the buyer's agents may not even talk to you until you pay them, right? My masterclass is $97. When you have to pay a retainer fee, $500, $1,000, it's well worth it. Well worth it. I'll put that link at some point during this live. Patricia, how are you? Miss Hill, my hubby and I need to move in home from apartment in September. Are you still working as a realtor? Yes. In my videos, you guys, I have a link to get a referral, especially for Georgia. And then I have Georgia, Florida, working on like my 10 main states that I get referrals from. But yes, I have a link. I don't have it right now, but I do have a link. Sorry, my moderator may put it up. So yes, but like I said, I only do a tight radius around where I live now. Thank you so much, Patricia. Yes, and please get my masterclass if you don't have it already. The moderator has posted that on there. So yeah, get the masterclass. All right, I think I put away the last question. It's such a rip off and a huge expense to buy. This just made it even worse. And that's what I don't want to happen, because I don't want first-time homebuyers already discouraged by this market to get even more discouraged. So in most of your states, if you ask your agent, even right now, because this change hasn't really happened, people are still offering commission. Because one thing you have to keep in mind, the majority of sellers, they remember when they bought their house. They didn't pay their agent. So even though this is new, their memory of not paying their agent directly is still fresh in their mind. A lot of them, they know that they didn't pay. Like when my sellers come back, I represented them as a buyer. Now they're ready to sell their house. They don't remember paying me directly. So they remember that the seller covered the commission for their agent. So, most sellers still remember that. So I'm not saying the fact that it's not going to be advertised doesn't mean, as part of selling their home and making it more attractive to the largest pool of buyers, that sellers are not still going to offer it. I just don't know at what volume, at what percentage. I don't know if, there are going to be agents that say, hey, my rate is 3%. I don't care what the house is. I don't care what happens. I'm going to pay 3%. And you're like, okay, I don't have 3%. I either have to find another agent or I have to go to a listing agent. Those things may begin to happen. I want some more flexibility. So that's why I'm thinking of different things that I can do in every business. One thing about real estate, everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. So everybody's going to have a different way that they handle this. Thank you, Dallas, Texas. Get that question off. I'm trying to go up from the top, see if I have any questions. Let me see. All right, you guys, please, hit the like button if you don't mind. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm sorry, the moderator and I are both going back and forth. You can put it back up, please. I missed that. All right, make every effort. Should we as first-time home buyers come in asking the seller, will they pay our agent? I'm asking because they may sway whether I use the listing agent or my own agent. And this is the other thing that I think may begin to happen. They may change or flip-flop based on the offer, right? They could decide, I don't have a lot of offers, I'll pay your agent. Oh, I got a lot of offers, I'm not going to pay your agent. So I don't know if the seller is going to be very firm, right, on whether they're going to be paying an agent or not. Depending on, I think it's going to depend on how well their home is selling, or how well, how much action or traction they're getting on their property, whether they make that decision up front or not. And I'm even thinking, if I was a listing agent, it really just depends whether or not they're going to have that. Well, I'm offering it from the time of listing, right? They may say, okay, I'm paying you, my listing agent, and I'll see whether or not I'm going to offer anything to the buyer's agent. They do have that flexibility. So I think you're going to have those discussions with and I'm doing this because everything's very fresh. I'm going to have another video once I think through even my strategy, and I'm going to share it. But there's, when you hire your agent, then you're going to have to sit down with them and say, hey, this is what I'm willing to pay, or I'm only willing to, look at homes that are offering, right? I'm only willing to look at homes that are offering a commission. And if they're not offering a commission, then I'm going to go directly to the seller. That could be an option that you have with your buyer's agent. And that's why that contract is going to be very important between you and the buyer's agent, because you may go back and forth, right? You may go back and forth and say, hey, if I find a house that I want and they're not offering anything and I'm not willing to pay you out of my pocket, then I'm going to go directly to them. This is the other thing that I was saying. I may offer something that's just, you already found the house, you just need me to go make an offer for you and go through the contract and stuff like that with you. That may be one of the offerings that I give. I did talk to an attorney though, and they just said you have to be very consistent. If you say that, you're going to do that, then it has to be one house. Like, it has to be, I can't say, well, there can't be any wiggle room. You have to say, I want to buy this house. I say, okay, I'll write the offer for you. I'll take you through. If that house doesn't work out, then it's going to be another fee for the next house, right? So that's one of the things that I'm thinking about doing, because a lot of people, they say they found the house that they want, and then, your offer may or may not get accepted. So do I charge you for every offer that I make for you, right? And then if your offer doesn't get accepted, maybe there's another fee for the next one. Maybe there's a bundle, you get 3 offers. I don't know. But like in my instance, I haven't made a decision. I need to talk to an attorney. I need to talk to a couple of people and say, okay, what would make the most sense for both sides as to how. But I can see agents saying, okay, you already found the house. You found a house on Zillow. I'll just, take you from contract to close. And, I'll never go out and show you a house or do anything like that. But everything that you offer has to be in writing. So I have to, the attorney was advising me, I have to say specifically what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do for you. Okay. Because right now I go to the inspections, I do a lot of things from contract to close. And so I have to really write down and be consistent with every client as to what I do and what I don't do. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay. So Miss Vita, so how does this work? Upfront buyer fees or flat fees? Will this guarantee a reasonable home offer? It's not, there's no, the other thing, there's no certainty. Sometimes you can work with a buyer for months before they find a property. So the only guarantee that you had in the past is, okay, most of these homes are offering a buyer agent commission. So I think because there's less certainty of being paid by the seller, more agents are going to ask up front to be compensated. So just to hire me, it's going to cost you something up front, like non-refundable. To hire me as your agent is going to cost you something. And then, it may cost you something else depending on what the seller is offering or not offering. And like I said, there are going to be a lot of different versions of how this looks. I've talked to agents who say, well, I don't care, about this thing. I'm charging my buyer clients 3%. And so if they want to work with me, it costs 3%. Now, some people are saying that, they're going to, really advocate and try to find, work with the sellers and, work and put the compensation into the offer. But by law, and I think it depends on your state, the buyer has to ask you. So I can't just, add my compensation in the offer without you knowing or without you saying that's what you want to do. You have to tell me up front that, hey, for every offer that we submit, or at least for this offer, I want you to add that they're going to pay your commission. Okay. I can't leave that, because then that's messing up your chances and perhaps buying this house, because I'm tacking on my fees independent of you. So you have to, as a buyer, tell me that you want your commission added to the offer. I can't say, well, this is your offer. You're offering 100,000. I'm going to tell them they have to pay my commission of 3%. That's not ethical, because now I'm putting, additional strain. Like, they might have accepted your offer without my commission, right? So the buyer has to be the one to say, hey, Shahida, you write an offer and include your commission. I can't do it on my own. That's another thing to keep in mind. Like, the buyer has to agree that every offer that we make is going to include my commission. So some agents are saying that they're going to do it that way. And that's going to be part of that contract, that you say, hey, for every offer, you want to be paid 2%, Shahida. So every offer that you write, the seller, I don't have 2%. So every offer that you write, you go ahead and include your 2%. But that may or may not get you that house, depending on how competitive that property is. Questions? We have 240 people on this live. Please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. I will be here till 8 o'clock, so I'll try to get through as many questions as possible. All right, let me go back. The question was, will this impact? Hi, Yolanda M Team. She says, beautiful picture, by the way. How do you see this impacting VA buyers? So VA buyers cannot pay a commission outside. They can't pay a commission directly to an agent at all. There are different VA rules, so they can't pay for extra things. So they can't pay an agent directly. So this will impact VA buyers. I don't know if they're going to do some workarounds for VA. You can ask, right? The same way that I was just talking about. If the VA buyer says, hey, Yolanda, for every offer that you write for me, so Yolanda, you say, I want to be paid, 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever you want to get paid. And they say, okay, that's fine, but I'm not going to pay you. You need to find a seller that's going to pay you. And you can write it in your offer, right? That could be, but I think anytime, sellers are always just looking at their net. Sellers are like, okay, as long as I make this amount, y'all can figure out, I'm willing to pay $20,000 to whoever it is, but I need to net this. So all of those things become part of the negotiation. So sellers are always looking for people that don't need anything. Okay. If you don't need closing costs, usually a stronger offer than somebody that does. If you don't need me to pay your agent, probably going to be a stronger offer than somebody that does. Because in the past, people knew they were putting that up front. We're paying 3%. They couldn't go back and change it. Once they were under contract, they offered you to 3%. You're under contract with 3%. They couldn't pull that back. And you knew at time of offer what they were offering you, right? So that was because it was all, advertised. So you knew before you showed their house how much commission they were offering. They would have had to take their property off the market, and put it back on the market at a different percentage typically, because, it was all in writing, it was all under contract. So now there's a lot more flexibility that seller has, since it's not being advertised. They're not stuck necessarily with, oh, we have to pay this amount. All right, good question, Yolanda. And Yolanda, put what city or state you're in case anybody's interested. Jennifer Hodgson says, the seller proceeds came from the buyers. How do we get this so confused? Okay, so when you are purchasing the home, you are essentially paying, right, the money that they are making. So the money is kind of coming from you. However, they feel like they're selling their house for the market value on their end. They're like, okay, my house is worth $500,000. I'm getting $500,000, and I, choose to take some of that $500,000 to pay different people, be it their agents, closing costs, whatever it is. But I guess on the seller side, they're saying, okay, I'm paying 500. My house is worth 500,000. I'm selling it for 500,000. Now on the buyer's end, you are financing that whole five. Sometimes you're financing a lot of that, and you're paying. That's where that money is coming from. So without buyers, sellers can't do much. However, the market that some of you guys are still in is a seller's market, so they have a lot more power than they would typically have in a more balanced market or in a buyer's market. So they do hold more of the cards. So I guess that's what I would say to that. And they felt the whole lawsuits came about where they felt that they were being forced to pay both sides. Like basically, we wouldn't be paying 6% commission if we didn't have to pay 3% to my agent and 3% to the buyer's agent, right? They feel like, okay, I'm paying this out of the money that my house is worth. My house is worth 500,000, but I'm paying, sometimes 6% of that money to other people. Maybe I could just pay 3% of that money. All right, random username. Can buyers avoid this by getting under contract before the law goes into effect? And I don't think it's necessarily a law. It's more like a rule that the National Association of Realtors has decided to stop doing. It's something that they've always done. They're going to stop doing it. Yes, like I have. If you're right now, it's still being advertised. So if you look on I think Zillow even advertises what the commission is now. If you look on your MLS, or if you're an agent and you're looking for properties right now, the commissions are still there. All of the commissions are still being advertised. They're still out there. So if you're under contract before July 1st, when this is going to go into effect, then yes. But I do anticipate that because agents are like all of these coaches and different people in real estate, brokers are having these like emergency trainings, like we have to be trained on how we're going to do this, that sort of thing. So I believe as early as like we're in this June market right now, like the spring market is usually very busy anyway. So I would assume that agents are going to start changing their procedures as early as next month, probably April, May, because even as people get listings, that listing conversation is going to change to, hey, my fee is this. You have an option to if you want to offer the buyer's agent anything. So those conversations may change. So even before July 1st, you may see more, lower listing amounts or zero advertised amounts even before July 1st. But right now, if I look at our MLS in Georgia, most people, I would say 90% of them are still offering commission. Quiet Storm. I was advised today that Georgia is the only state that will not finance buyer agent fees. This needs to change expeditiously. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm not sure. I know that we can't finance them. So, I mean, the only thing I guess by financing them, this has always been the case, that if you have enough equity in the house, so say somebody's off, somebody is listing their house for 500,000, you can offer 510 and then say you want $10,000 back to pay your agent, to pay closing costs, but it has to appraise. It still has to appraise for that, 510,000. So that's still something you could do, just to work those numbers. And that's something that will have to be negotiated between the buyer and the seller, right? Good question. Ronald, Mrs. Hill, how will this new law affect aspiring investors with off markets? I don't think it's going to impact you at all if you're an investor, because if it's not being listed for sale, then that's kind of the negotiation between you and the seller anyway. If you were using an agent, I'm sure that agent would, things that are off market may or may not be paying a commission. It's not like they're under rules where they're in the MLS, because the MLS, the multiple listing system, that's how Zillow gets their listings, Realtor.com, Trulia, Redfin, they're all getting their listings from this MLS, and that MLS has rules. When we get a listing, we have to type all of these things in. And one of the things we always have to type in is, what are we offering the buyer's agent? And that's going away. So I don't see it impacting investors that are buying things off market, but you still have to be mindful if you are an investor that's using an agent and the agent was in the past guaranteed if you bought certain properties, they were going to get 3% or whatever it is, then they're not guaranteed that anymore. So they're probably going to be charging you to, that retainer fees, those flat fees, they're going to be charging you up front, more than likely. All right. I think I answered this question already. I'm a first-time home buyer. Can you help me? In all of my videos, I have a link to referrals. So if I can help you directly, I do have referral agents in 10 of my highest referral states. I have those. And then I use another resource for people outside of those 10 states. But thank you for that question. Britt Bratt. I'm in the waiting stage for pre-approval. I am in the waiting stage for pre-approval. I'm working on credit card debt as well, but horrible timing. I need a new car and don't know if I should finance a car now or after approved. So it's a no-no on the financing of the car. So cars are one of the number one things that stop people from buying their first home, because their debt to income ratio is typically so high after purchasing the car, they can't afford a house. So I would not be buying a new car, right? If your goal is to get a house, I would not be buying a new car. You may need to save up for a car that is just something that you could get around in. I've answered this question a lot. Definitely, I've answered it in my Facebook group recently. But the main thing is, if you finance a car, it may stop you from being able to get approved for a house based on your debt to income ratio. So you want to be very cautious about that. If you don't truly need a car, then try to fix the car you have, buy a car cash, things like that. And if you before you even finance, if you decide to finance anything, don't finance a car that you want, finance a car that you need. So the lowest payment possible. And then even before you do that, go ahead and do a pre-approval as to see what would you get approved for without the car, right? The same way you're doing without the credit card debt. And then that probably will, help you make your decision as to the type of car you purchase, because you want to make sure your debt to income ratio stays as low as possible. Thank you for that question. I want to focus, this is for the moderator too. I'm going to focus all questions tonight on buyer agency. I want to focus on that. When those questions are done, we'll go live again about other things. Please join my Facebook group. I'm going to go ahead and show my video if you have not got my masterclass yet. Are you looking for guidance on the first-time homebuyer process? And are you tired of those first-time homebuyer guides that leave you with more questions than answers? You are not alone. Most of those guides provide basic definitions and explanations because they're afraid to dig deeper, because they don't want to give you too much information, because then you may question what they're doing, your inspector, your agent, your lender. But what if you could become a confident first-time homebuyer armed with knowledge and clarity? Introducing my first-time homebuyer masterclass and Confidently Closed digital handbook. Join thousands of successful homebuyers who have unlocked the secrets to a seamless home buying journey. My comprehensive resources include a step-by-step masterclass, exclusive Confidently Closed digital handbook and sample documents, and a bonus new construction mini masterclass and checklist. You're not going to find this organized like I've organized it anywhere else. Our 9-step video masterclass, explainer videos, and 40-page digital handbook will be your trusted companion through the home buying process. Don't let the complexities of home buying overwhelm you. Invest in your education today and make confident decisions from the start. Check my reviews and the thousands of people that I have helped confidently buy their first home. All right, and that is in the link to my masterclass is in the chat. So if you get that today, So if anything, you're going to know what you're talking about dealing with either the listing agent or your agent. Whatever you're doing, you'll be educated. The master, thank you, Linda. I don't know when you purchased it or what you're doing, but thank you very much. I really appreciate your purchase and for you giving me a shout out on the chat. Thank you so much. Zoda, can you explain the new bill that the president is about to sign? Zoda, thank you for the super chat. So it's not a bill. That's number one. If you're talking about what I'm talking about, right? So I did a video, I think it came out last week, about Biden during the State of the Union address. He talked about a proposal. Anything that's talked about is not a bill. Like a bill has to be like, Congress is talking about it and they're about to, they're about to debate and it's, they're going to vote on it, that sort of thing. It hasn't even gotten to that point. It's just a proposal that he would give a $400 a month tax credit to first-time home buyers. And that would help them, afford a home at the higher interest rates. But again, it's just a proposal. It's nothing that is like a bill. It's not at Congress, not in the House, it's not in the Senate. It's none of that. So I wouldn't, my main point of that video was that there are going to be things that are proposed from both sides, from Biden, from Trump. There are going to be a lot of proposals, but they're not law. So we're not going to, or I don't advise you to depend on that. You buy a house when you're financially able to do so. You hold on to that house for 7 to 10 years, you will be fine. But don't wait on any type of program where, I'm going to wait, because a lot of people, 3 or 4 years ago, probably 3 years ago now, he talked about a $25,000 program for first-time home buyers. It never came into fruition. So I don't want anybody waiting for something to purchase. Purchase when you're ready. Financially, you're stable in your employment. That's when you want to purchase. But thank you for the question. Watch that video in its entirety. It's only about 5 minutes, and I kind of explained it a little bit more there. All right, be happy. Thank you for doing this live chat. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. We're at 255 people. I hope you guys are also liking this video. And like I said, I've been thinking about this myself because, again, a lot of my business are buyers. Not that I don't take that many individual clients that much, but I would say I'm 70% buyers and 30% listings. So I have to change my strategy if listing agents stop offering a commission, or I have to negotiate that commission. So definitely changing my whole buyer consultation. Like, hey, these are our strategies. Either I can ask the listing agent, you could pay me up front. We get, there's going to be some, different choices that everybody's going to have to talk through. I'm licensed in Maryland and Washington. So this is Yolanda M M Team. And I like to shout out all of my YouTube agents. If you are a YouTuber and you're an agent, it's hard work, but we have to get views and do videos all the time. So I'm shouting her out. She is also the 2023 president of Maryland Realtors. That's excellent. You're providing excellent information. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, especially coming from the president. Y'all need to have me out there to talk to you guys about YouTube. All right, but contact me anytime. Thank you. Carissa, this is beyond frustrating. Buyers are dealing with the lack of inventory, overpriced homes, bidding wars, historically high interest rates, and now likely having to pay our agents. This is the worst. Okay, and I do feel your frustration, because the same way that when I was saying I've never had to charge my agents, before I was a real estate agent, I bought my first house, I didn't pay my agent then, right? So I think everybody feels your frustration, but because, again, this is very new, sellers have the power, right, to say, okay, we're offering something or we're not offering something. And I think more sellers than we may think are still going to offer a commission to the buyer's agent, unless it's a situation where there are just so many offers on their home that they don't have to be honest with you. But I mean, we have a lot of homes in Atlanta right now, depending on the age of them, the condition of them, all of those kind of things, where they're not they're not moving as quickly, right? So they're going to have to offer something to get just a buyer through the door. And so they're going to offer a commission, they're going to offer some closing costs. It's all going to be part of getting a buyer to purchase their property. So I don't want us to think that because of this change, sellers are going to be like, oh, you're on your own, pay your agent. And also, I think agents we're going to have to humble ourselves a lot to say, okay, we got used to seeing 3%, that sort of thing. We have to sit down and say, okay, and we know, and I know this, some of our clients are super easy. You might show them 1 or 2 houses, they're under contract, they close. Another client, you might show them 30 houses over 4 months, and it takes you longer. In the past, you would get paid the same amount for both of those, depending on what the seller was offering you for the most part, right? Now it might be a little bit different. The easier that your transaction may be, it may be that the less you have to pay, right? So all of those things are on the table. I'm definitely not in the camp of you got to pay me 3%. That's my fee, because there's no set amount. I think every client is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to spend more time thinking, okay, what kind of client is this versus this? Now, new construction, I don't know what they're going to do. So far, new construction is still offering agents, commission for bringing buyers to new construction, but that might change, right? They may go more heavily directly to you than they have in the past. But I have, a few people under contract for new construction, and they're still offering a commission on new construction, but that might change as well. All right. The busy homeschooling mom flies. I love that. Okay. And I love your smile. Okay. Mrs. Hill. What if you use people that work for Redfin or other companies that pay their realtors a wage? I don't know if Redfin pays their realtors a wage, but I think the reason why agents work for Redfin is because they're more guaranteed a certain amount of leads. Like they give them, so people call Redfin and Redfin sends them out. So you might get more listings than you could on your own. So, but Redfin agents don't. Let me not talk about Redfin. Redfin might want to sponsor my channel, but Redfin has a whole different structure where they may list for a lower amount, and then they pay maybe the buyer agent 1% or 2%. I don't know if they're going to change what they offer now as far as what they advertise, but I see a lot of Redfin homes sitting on the market. They're not being advertised as heavily as other homes. So if I'm on the listing side, you need to be very cautious with some of the lower cost options sometimes, because they don't do as much marketing of your property. They will list it for a cheaper amount, but that means that they're going to put a few pictures online, they're going to put a sign in your yard, and they're going to hope it sells. They're not going to do anything extra for that property. So if you're working with a Redfin agent, they're probably going to have to change their strategy a little bit as well, because the Redfin agents, if you hired a Redfin agent, they were still getting paid. If there was like a non-Redfin house that was offering 3% or whatever, they were getting paid that, or at least the Redfin company, I guess, was getting paid that. I'm not sure how much they gave their agents individually, but I know a lot of agents that went to Redfin as their employer went there because it was more like a model of, I don't have to like hustle out here and try to get clients. Redfin will give me a certain amount of clients based on their advertising and that sort of thing. So I think Redfin's going to have to change their strategy as well, because their Redfin agents that represent buyers are not going to bring in as much money as they once did. All right. Thank you, the busy homeschool mom. Patricia, what is the difference between a builder's agent and my own realtor? They don't work for you. This is very important for you guys to know. Okay. So I always think of and this is not a slight on builder's agents, but if you use the builder's agent, it's kind of like using your husband's attorney in the divorce, right? That attorney represents your husband, not you. And that's the same way. That agent that's sitting on site for the builder represents the builder. They don't represent you. They have to legally do things for you, but they don't have to do anything outside of their legal obligation to you. So sometimes during the course of your transaction, if you don't have your own representation, it could. I mean, sometimes it goes really smoothly with the new construction agent and you don't have any issues. But if you do have any issues, they don't have to advise you as to what to do next. They don't have to help you. They represent the builder and the builder only. They do not represent you. In their contract, you sign saying, I do not represent you. Like they make sure you sign so you know that they do not represent you. Either you're not being represented at all if you don't have your agent on the paper, or you're representing yourself basically, but you don't have representation. And like I said, sometimes new construction goes very smoothly. Sometimes it doesn't go very smoothly and things come up. I have one example where I had a client, he was overseas, he was in the military. I was representing him. We did everything online, Zoom, all that kind of stuff. He ordered espresso, like dark wood cabinets in his home. We get to the house for the walkthrough, all white cabinets. And the agent on site said, we're not changing the cabinets. We're not ordering new cabinets. He either takes this or cancels his contract. So I had to go to a lawyer on, and good things about agents, I didn't have to pay the lawyer. We use lawyers all the time for closings and that sort of thing. And I said, okay, this is what they're telling me. This is what the options they're giving me. We're clearly under contract for these espresso cabinets. So they had me write this, whole thing up. And, I came back to them and said, hey, we're getting espresso cabinets, and you're going to take these cabinets out, or we're going to arbitration on these cabinets. Now, if you're not represented, right, that you may have had to pay a lawyer. There are little things that agents can help you with that you are able to, I guess, lean on in that case. So in that case, because they were going to make him, they gave him three choices: change your lot, cancel your contract, get your earnest money back, or keep these white cabinets. And so I had to advocate for him, get lawyers involved to make sure that they had the right cabinets in that house. And right now he's in that house with espresso cabinets in the lot that he chose, and he closed on time. So you need somebody, you never know what's going to come up in your new construction transaction. So you do want to have somebody that's, advocating for you, because the person on site is not your advocate. They can be friendly, they can be nice, but they represent the builder. That's who hired them. Linda, I have an agent, but we haven't looked for houses in a while. She said in the past she didn't need a contract with me. I guess she would want one now. How do I approach her with this? She's probably going to approach you. And I don't think it's super unusual, especially if there might not be things on the market. I have a lot of, I don't even call them clients, and you're not her client. I'm gonna say that because she has no contractual obligation to you, right? Until you are signed, you're not officially a client necessarily, or you're not on the contract, you're not officially a client. I would say that. So I think more than likely she's going to approach you, and probably her broker. Like I said, this is very new. This has been talked about probably about 2 years or more, about this being a possibility. But now that it's official, a lot of people are going to a lot of agents are going to trainings, that sort of thing, knowing how to react to this new change. So she may go back through her customers or people that she's been working with and make sure everybody's under contract with her. And I would say this, and I say this in my masterclass: don't sign a contract for longer than you need to. I don't do more than 90 days with any of my clients. Stop signing these 1-year contracts, these 6-month contracts. 90 days. And if you want to continue, do another 90 days, you do another 90. You can extend the contract, but don't upfront sign a contract like for a year. 90 days has been my rule, so both sides can get out of it, without a lot of problems. But try not to get in these long-term contracts with anyone. But yeah, I think Linda, she's going to approach you more than likely. Ms. Vita will be purchasing the masterclass. Nothing is getting better, rent or purchase. Yeah. Buy and plan on holding on to it as long as possible. I know I posted a while ago, I was like, when 30, 40 years ago, when homes were the average home was $30,000. I was like, why didn't our parents buy like 10 of these houses because they'll be, we'd be all millionaires now, right? It's because they couldn't, their income back then, $30,000 was super expensive for them. So we have to kind of think longer term. You're buying a house now, think in the future what that house is going to be worth, not only for you, but for your family, for your heirs. We've been talking about estate planning and that sort of thing. But if you can afford to, it's in your budget, you're not spending too much of your take home pay on it, then plan to buy a house. This will get worked out. I think for the most part, if I was selling my house, I would offer a commission because I want as many buyers to see my property as possible. I want to get as much money for my house as possible. And so the more demand you have for your house, the home value goes up. Typically, the offer amounts go up. And so I think a lot of sellers will want that level of demand for their house. All right, treasured space. Will this live be saved on your channel? Yes. So as soon as this live is over, typically it's on the channel, maybe 5 minutes after. I want to go back and watch what I missed. Yes. So it will be on my channel, it'll be uploaded. And I promise, give me till April because I'm still thinking about how I'm going to approach this. My brokerage is offering classes. I'm sure attorneys are going to be offering classes, and I'm going to do that. But more than likely, this was happening in Shahida's head, that I'm going to offer different tiers of service for my buyer clients. There'll be different tiers and what goes with each of those tiers. And I'm probably going to just have a contract to close option as well, where you already found the house that you want and you just want me to help you from the contract to closing. All right, that's what I'm thinking about. Thank you so much. Okay, sorry. Clark, the realtor. I'm going to take 3 more questions. So Clark is one of them. I don't think this is a question. This is just a comment. Hey, Clark, I've seen it already in the MLS system. He's an agent. The agent said the buyer's commission is 0. So it is happening. Have a conversation with your agent and just stay educated. I agree, Clark. Clark, I think you're in Atlanta. I don't know if he has a channel, but check it out. So definitely what he's saying is true. Remember, we talked about this not going into effect until July. But what's going to happen is because agents are aware of this, they're prepping their sellers now. If they take a new listing, that conversation is changing as to what they're telling them, right? So, it's going to happen probably before July. So the conversations that you're having with your agent is going to change. And let me say this, if you're paying an agent out of your own pocket, they better be top tier. Like I have in my masterclass, the questions you should ask. If you are paying them out of your own pocket, make sure they're going to be able to give you the service that you need. And then you need to, look at that contract and make sure you have it out just in case they are not giving you the service that you need. Because there are a lot of you that complain, right, about the level of service you're getting from your buyer's agent. And a lot of times they're getting paid regardless. But now if you have to pay them up front, the level of service needs to go way up. On a buyer's agent side, I'm talking to our agents. If somebody's paying you out of their pocket, then I think the expectation of the level of service they're going to get needs to be way higher. All right, Ty, are you saying sellers and agents can choose on a case-by-case basis? What if sellers are not fair to all on this, say, female buyers are charged and are not Black versus white? This is a good question, right? For the most part, this could still happen, right? Because depending on, what they know about the buyers, then they can make those decisions at the time. But because you can ask to be compensated, or you can ask for your agent to be compensated in your offer, then they don't have to necessarily say it was because of female or Black or white. They could say this person was asking for commission and this person wasn't asking for commission, so I went with this offer. Remember, they're looking at net, like the seller net. It's going to be hard for you to prove in a lot of cases it was because of your race, it was because of your female, male, family. Like, fair housing still has those protections, but you have to be able to prove it. You almost have to, when they used to test for fair housing, they would do the same thing. They would say, hey, this offer is from the Black family, this offer is from the white family. Maybe the white family's offer was a little bit less, and they still went with that offer. Like those are kinds of tests that they would do, but it's going to be harder for, to me, it's going to be hard for them to know for sure what that's going to be. I'll take one more. Okay, so she said this. Sorry, she said this is the last question. I'm sorry. So I've promised that I'm going to come back and do what I would do and how you should approach. Let me see what we're doing. Okay. I said I would come back and talk more about how I'm going to do it, because I will be making a decision pretty soon as we hit the spring market. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. We're at 317 people. Make sure you're getting my masterclass. My masterclass is not audible. Thank you for the super chat. It's not audible, but I am talking a lot so I guess it is audible, but it's not like a book, right? So every step there are videos. I go over a contract, I go over a buyer's brokerage agreement, and then every step you'll see videos from me talking about the process. And then you have a hard copy, not a hard copy, you have a digital that you can print out. You have a digital book that you can print out that has every step of the process. All right, good questions. Thank you, Zoda. Y'all have a great night.